So welcome to latest episode of Claris Beyond. And I think
Yep.
today will be a good, we have a couple good presenters today, so I think it'll be a good
I
meeting
agree.
all in
That's why
all.
there's what is the medical need
And just to
there.
let you know, this is being recorded.
So,
So our goal here is to discuss
mm,
how we can make FileMaker and Claris products expand beyond their own ecosystem and become a good citizen with the rest of the internet using various technologies out there. And you'll see some examples of this today, with one not using an API, which is kind of fun.
yeah.
Okay, I guess there's some notes on how to join the Slack workspace in the chat. We find that a better place to make
Right.
comments than actually in the chat
Yeah.
workspace, because the Slack workspace will not go away after the meeting. So we're going to do a little bit of a
It's gonna
recap of 2024. Uh, I think it's
uh,
been a good year for FileMaker. Uh, we've had the return of conferences and pause on error, and some exciting FileMaker releases, one just recently that offer a lot more value. So some questions here. Um, we want to know what kind of most common type of integration that
because of
you are
everybody over
presently
and
using.
also walking around with crutches.
And these are compiled from last year. Every month we would do a survey at the beginning of the call. So we just put them all together, and this is kind of the overall results that everybody shared.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see APIs dominate that, uh, and then plugins, and I think Claris Connect comes in a third. And so our overview is basically how many APIs members work with. There are several that have worked with over 10, which is impressive. And I think the I use several seems to be the most common. Nobody's trying to avoid them, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And the most challenging system, well, they've got right there in the front there, QBO, QuickBooks Online, which we will be addressing today. So that's kind of interesting. I think my most challenging has been Google Calendar, but your mileage may vary. And of course, it looks like QuickBooks Online came in first for what would members like to learn about. So we'll have a good session today on that.
Sure.
Maybe some point in time we'll get to WordPress. So our first presenter is Edward Lee from Claris, who's going to discuss the latest Claris Connect release notes.
Start with introduction. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you, and thank you, Kate, for giving me this invitation to present to this group. I'm Edward. I'm a product manager here over at Claris. I've been with Claris for about 3 years. The first 2 years, I was working on a combination of both Claris Connect and Studio, supporting Ronnie Rios and Robert Hosley. Now I am now the general Claris Connect product manager, really tackling all those bugs that the community has faced while really striving towards Connect and enhancing the product to what developers need. So with that introduction in mind, I do want to get a raise of hands. Does anyone here know where to find the Claris Connect release notes out of curiosity?
I have it bookmarked somewhere, and if I forget that, I just Google Claris Connect release notes.
Got it. I do want to just let everyone know where Claris Connect release notes is in the product. It is on the top right, and you click on it.
Ah,
It is right there. Easy way to check it out.
perfect.
And in October, which is last month, we had two really big releases. October back in Halloween, and this one occurred in the middle of October. I'm going to be presenting five different features that we've have really fixed and built, just to showcase everyone here what my team has been up to. So with that in mind, let me just introduce everyone what those 5 bugs or features are. The first one is a new getting started feature. This is for people who don't know how to get started with Claris Connect. We guide them to a different URL, which shows them how to learn about the concepts of Claris Connect and really help them get started. The second one is for a new project move feature, where you're able to move a project between different organizations. I'll talk about more about that later. Third is a step history enhancement. Fourth is a Dropbox enhancement. And fifth, of course, a big day in October that we did was the Claris Studio connector. I'll also be showing everyone a quick demo of what we did there. So with that in mind, let's start with the getting started feature. I definitely want to start talking about why we did it and then sharing with everyone how to get access to it. So the biggest thing we heard when we talked to our customers is when they log into Claris Connect, they don't really know what to do next. So our really quick answer, experiment answer to that is when someone logs in, we have I mean, unfortunately, I can't show it to everyone here, but we have this, one moment, click the wrong link. We have this link right here that will pop up when you first log in. It says, welcome to Claris Connect. And when you want to get started, you'll click this link. It will take you to Claris Academy, where you can start learning more about what there is with Claris Connect, the key concepts, and really get you started with working on your first flow together. That is the first enhancement we did back in October. Now, going to the next feature, we also introduced a move feature feature, which is what happens when you accidentally built in the wrong project. We've heard this time and time again from partners and from consultants who accidentally built in the wrong organization that they had because they have their own partner license, they have their customers organization. So you can really get mixed up when you're in that sort of scenario. I'm going to quickly demo to everyone. I have this project right here where I have a HTTP trigger connected to a Google Calendar. Over here, as you can tell, I have created a very quick flow where I've been authenticated. I've entered in the tags and what calendar I'm trying to access. Let's pretend that I accidentally built in the wrong organization and I want to move it to my client's organization. I'll go back to my project level. I'll click move project
I actually checked with Eric
and
on this. And
I'm gonna, sorry, Mike, I don't know if you have questions, but I'm just gonna continue on with this and then we can answer your question if you had one. I'm gonna move it towards my second organization that I have access to, which is Perfect Hedgehog. I move it over there, and in Perfect Hedgehog, we can see that project has been easily moved towards to that new organization. And when I go look into the details, it looks like the authentication stayed, the account which I have access to, which is the calendar name, stayed, and also the text that I had built before also got moved over. So this one feature I'm really happy to get out because we really worked hard to get this out to when really the only answer to when you get into the scenario is, oh gosh, I gotta log into my client's organization and rebuild the flow. And we all know rebuilding something it's just really time consuming. Another thing I wanted to show you is the third feature. Let me go back to my original organization and let me just move that up. When you build out your first project and you run a flow, a big thing that comes to mind when you first get started with Claris Connect is how much steps did I consume? I'm very lucky. I have a very special organization that has, I believe, 100,000. Oops. I have 100,000 flows, 100,000 steps, but not everyone has those amount of steps that have 500 to 10,000. And so we built out a feature in the history tab where it shows you how many steps that you consumed out of the total steps that were available. As an example, I know when I was butting my head in the very beginning of building out this demo, I had a few errors where I consumed 2 steps. And so all these steps, we now show you all the steps that you have consumed in the step history. And Mike, I know you went on mute. Did you have any questions before I share out the next 2 features I wanted to share out?
I don't have any questions, and unless anybody else does, I know our time's a little tight today,
I know.
so.
One quick question. Can you see how many flow steps you've used in a time period, or is it just on a flow by flow basis?
It's on a flow by flow basis. We haven't gotten there yet where it'll show you the summarization on a day, weekly, or monthly. We're getting there, but this is our step in the right direction.
Thank you.
It is not duplicated. I do know that has been a really top ask, and we are working towards that. But right now, we don't have a duplicate option today. There's a very interesting mechanism of how we implemented out this feature. So that's how we went about it. If we were to leave the original and really leave a duplicate and then move it out, it would have taken a much longer time to release this feature out. So that's kind of why we went with this direction.
Very good.
I do know the ask of being able to duplicate a project, giving out to your customers, or even sharing it out with someone. We really are going in that direction. One other thing we did enhancement on was one of our Dropbox connector. We realized as our customers were using Dropbox, we were having a clashing moment. When someone uploads a file into Dropbox, automatically users will want to share the Dropbox URL. We had a problem where that wasn't it was clashing where the action would happen right after the upload to file occurs. So we made a small enhancement into the Dropbox feature. Oops, not this one. Go to this one. And over here, we added an extra option where you have the option to choose whether to wait until the file has been uploaded or not. And I'm gonna quickly share with everyone a demo that I built where I have this flow right here in FileMaker. I can upload a container field. When I upload that container field, we'll drop it into my container field in FileMaker. That file will automatically generate a Dropbox URL where I can send out an email. One of the biggest things we heard from our partners is it's very hard in FileMaker to send out an email with a big attachment. Well, now you can now generate an email and have a Dropbox URL at the bottom to send that attachment, to send that big photo that you have to your end customers. So over here, I'm going to open my little Finder, upload this image of just a phone that I took a picture of. And then Claris Connect will be ran and quickly going through the steps. Right now, we upload a file and in the process of creating a shared link. After we have created a shared link, you can go back to FileMaker and that URL has been inputted right there. And what's even more interesting is I can show you the steps ran feature where it shows you how many steps that you've consumed throughout this one flow. Now, the last thing I do want to show you is back to Keynote is with our Claris Studio connector, when I was working with Claris Studio, forms was a big use case. And one of the biggest things we heard was how does the customer know when I finish building out a form and the user fills out a form? How would the customer know that the information that they filled out was right? There is a mechanism today to get that confirmation email. So now we're using Claris Studio with Connect to send out that confirmation email. Right now, I have this little account registration form that is our template data. Let me just fill this. I definitely want to fill this out to the best of my abilities. So let me just copy the email. Type in a few items. Type in, what class do I want to sign up for selling? And what will be the cost? I'll just put a number here. Shellfish. I click submit. And right after I click submit, I have a Claris Connect flow that I built where I'll go back to over here where I have Outlook sending on confirmation. And funny enough, it did error out because I didn't put a date. So let me quickly put a date here real quickly. Oh, right here. This was the form I was going to fill out. Let me copy this, put it over here, submit. And we'll go back to Claris Connect where I built out a flow. That one, I always click the wrong one. And this Zoom thing is always funny. where I will send an email right to the user who filled it out with all the information that they selected. So over here, I just received the email where it gives me a confirmation that I've successfully filled out that Claris Studio form. I selected which class that I filled out with and the date of when the class will start. Now, these dates and the costs are definitely fictitious, but this is just an example to share everyone really the use cases we're trying to build and really perfect for our customers. And of course, all the pain points we've been hearing from our customers. So with that, that ends my keynote and it kind of goes in the Q&A section. Does anyone have any questions about anything I presented?
Are there any questions concerning any of what Edward had to say here? There was some good stuff. That's some nice improvements.
Ah, okay, that's perfect. I'm glad you phrased it like that. We've heard that time and time again from our customers when we were doing a testing for Claris Studio Forms. They have it in their roadmap and in their backlog. I'm gonna send your email and that feedback specifically to Robert Halsley, who's on my team, because I know that was one of the top asks from the customers I talked to too. If not, I do want to ask one question to the audience. It's more about our Claris Connect licensing. I mean, this is a great time. Anytime is always a great time just to get candid feedback about our current existing licensing for Claris Connect, whether we need improvements, whether we need adjustments. I'm more open and candid about if there's any feedback. You can email it to me later. You could chat, Slack it to me since I joined the Claris Beyond group, you can Slack it to me there. But I would just love your kind of feedback on our existing Claris Connect licensing and how we can make it better.
And we can include your email too as a kind of a follow-up to everybody, and they can send you some feedback that way. That we'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming today and sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Edward.
for having me.
Yeah, we had those. If everyone wants to answer real quick, we had those that
Yeah.
Edward had asked and we didn't get to them. Let me send you the link again for Minty if you want to
Yes.
plug in your quick answers. It's just 3 questions here. No prizes with these, but
Oh, darn. I used to be a big on-premise guy.
Mhm.
But since I'm from the Northwest, I know all about clouds. So cloud servers became the thing. Okay, I think maybe we should move on. Next
Yep.
one. Okay, how frequently do you use Claris Connect flows?
And that's just open response. And while you're answering that, we also, Beverly pointed out, we want to mention the WIT-FM scholarships are open. There's a link there you can follow to get more details on that. Got the whole range there.
Broad spectrum of
Never
answers there.
every day.
Yeah. Okay. I think we'll move on.
Yep, there's one more.
What do you find most challenging about getting started with Claris Connect? I think those are some honest answers.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got Jillian here to discuss a way to connect to QuickBooks Online without using an API. So welcome, Jillian. Thanks for presenting today. Would you like to share your screen?
Sure. I think Edward's going to be a little upset about what I'm going to present, but so I say without an API a little loosely. I'm not sure whether you consider something like Claris Connect using an API, but at any rate, just quickly about me. My background's largely been in the creative world, but FileMaker's kind of been part of my life for a long time. And just this year, I decided to focus solely on FileMaker. So I had a unique situation. You may never have to come across this, but I have an existing client with a legacy vertical market solution for the funeral industry. and it was developed at a time before FileMaker supported hierarchy, meaning having multiple tables within a database. So the original data file, well, actually the whole system comprised about 35 separate databases at one point. Now it's down to like 23. But the original file, when it was its only file, had over 5,400 fields in it, 50 of which were related to finance. So even with as many years as has gone by, nobody redesigned this to use like an invoicing system, because the funeral homes actually have a slightly different way of doing billing than most other businesses would. The other complication was that not all of their users are using FileMaker Server. So to utilize something like Claris Connect, that would prevent them from having access to that. And other solutions that were considered, such as developing a custom API or implementing a QuickBooks plugin that's available, would have been too expensive. So I was already familiar with a third-party automation product called Make, and I had built another solution to generate obituaries. So they could take the data that was in the system, send it off via Make to ChatGPT, and it would spit back an obituary. So they really liked that. And after figuring that out, I found that they had QuickBooks modules. So I created a solution that would serve the need that they had. So Make is very similar to Claris Connect, where you create, they call them scenarios that connect various services. And it can generate a webhook, which you would use as part of insert from URL. Their pricing, Edward, you might want to pay attention to this. They have a free tier where you get 1,000 operations per month, and that resets every month. And an operation is, if you look at this graphic here, every one of these little circles represents an operation. So every time you hit a module, this module would take 5. So you would use 5 operations for that module. Now, of course, it doesn't have direct connectivity to the FileMaker, but there are ways. I haven't experimented with it, but there would be a way to use an HTTP module and something like Auto FMS that can generate a webhook on the FileMaker end, so that if you were doing transactions between other services and then wanted to send data back to FileMaker when your scenario didn't originate from FileMaker, you could probably use that HTTP module to do that. But I haven't tried that, so your mileage may vary on that. So going back to what their original system was doing. So again, they have a flat file. All their financial fields are in this file. They created another database that users could run a script daily that would loop through all of those fields, all of the financial fields, to create totals in specific categories of transaction types. So contracts, ordered later, rebilling fees, interest, etc., are all like accounts receivable types of transactions. But of course, these are totals and they're not tied to any specific customer. They're just a total. So even if you were to try to make an invoice, there isn't a customer, it's just a total. So my solution was to use journal entries to record these totals and get them into somebody's QuickBooks system. So after the process runs, I actually create a transaction record, which I'll show you when we do the little demo, to grab the QuickBooks ID, the journal ID, if there's ever a case where they needed to delete this and rerun their daily journal because for some reason somebody made an entry after someone had run the daily journal for that day. So what is Make? So I had to create two scenarios in Make. So the first one is for retrieving the chart of accounts and the customer list. So the first module is what gives you the URL. The router allows you to put filters on the data that you've sent in so that I could use this one webhook to do multiple things. So it's like having an if statement. So if my action is accounts, it's going to go and do this top scenario, which is to grab the chart of accounts. If the action is customers, it's going to go and grab the customer list. The aggregator with a filter in the middle here, I didn't need all of the accounts. So I only needed specific account type. So I didn't want to grab everything. So there again is, I'm able to set which types of accounts I want. And I also didn't need all of the fields related to that. So I'm only pulling the ID, the name, and the type of the account, for example. But you could just pull everything. You wouldn't have to filter if you wanted to use that information for something else. Then the next module actually writes the JSON, which is then sent back to the webhook back into FileMaker that I parse. And then the second scenario is actually what does the creating and deleting of the journal entries. Some of the things I learned, if you're not familiar with insert from URL, it has this feature where you can add a minimum timeout, a maximum timeout, and the ability to show an error. This is really useful because if the transaction times out, you don't want the rest of your script to continue. You want to capture for that. So here I'm capturing for that and showing a dialogue to tell the person that they have to rerun the script again. Make supports all of these types. They have a module, a QuickBooks module for every one of these types of transactions. So pretty much anything you want to do in QuickBooks, it supports, including making a custom API call. So if there's something in here that doesn't suit your solution, you can write your own. And one other tip, of course, my solution is it has a set number of transactions. So I only have to send a debit and a credit. But if you're doing something like an invoice where there could be a varying number of line items, you would need to do something a little more complex to compile your array before sending it to create the invoice. Now, I didn't come up with this solution. I found this in a community forum, but this would basically show you how you would have to loop through the information that you send to your webhook and then compile it into an array before you created an invoice. So that's just a little tip there. To show you, I think this little menu's in the way here. Let's see. So this is wrong window. Okay. So this is what Make looks like. So in my setup, I'm actually using one webhook to do 4 things. So not only can it grab the accounts and the customers, I can create an account and a customer. And the reason I had to do this was they have a tech support person who would have to actually install this for each customer, and he didn't know QuickBooks. And so if they were missing a type of account or they were missing the default customer to which we were going to post all of these transactions, he would have to create them. So rather than teaching him how to do that directly in QuickBooks, I built a way for him to do it right from FileMaker. One of the nice things about Make is after you have run you've run the scenario, you can always go into your history and see what the data was that was transmitted. So this is helpful if you are encountering errors and you want to see, well, did my bundle really contain what I wanted to send? Which filter was used? So here, if you see the little ones, that shows you which scenario was fired. So basically here I send an action equals create. And so it's using the create scenario to create the record in QuickBooks, create the journal entry in QuickBooks. So what this looks like in QuickBooks, and you'll have access to this demo file, and please forgive me, this is the first time I've ever prepared a demo file for anybody. So it actually, one of the nice things about Make is you can export your scenarios. They call them blueprints when you export them. So basically it gives you the template structure of this, and you just create your own webhook and you create your QuickBooks connections. So unlike the example where Edward showed that you could move a scenario and preserve the connections that you had in that, this is basically like a duplicate feature where not only, so I could give this to another person and they could insert it into their own make.com account, but I can also just duplicate any scenarios I have in here. So because you're setting up your authentication on the make.com side of things, for every customer that this gets installed for, they're going to need their own copy of this scenario, because again, you're having to customize the webhook, customize the QuickBooks connection, but everything else remains the same. They're the only two things you have to change in order to get it to work for multiple customers. So I have the instructions in this developer tips in, first of all, how to set up a developer account with QuickBooks if you don't know how to do that, how to get yourself, once you're set up on Make, how to import these blueprints to get yourself started before you run the scripts that are in this sample. So basically this demo file, I just tore apart from the whole system. So this is the database component that has the script that runs the loop that goes through all of those fields to create records and then be able to total them. So this represents over several months of records that were run and the totals for each of these transaction types. Now, when the user is using this, they're only going to be able to send one date at a time. But when you're setting it up to verify that you've got everything properly mapped, it's a good idea to have a value for every one of these totals. So it's basically a simple walkthrough process of getting this set up for a customer. So you essentially have to import your, of course, I thought I had it open and I don't. My webhooks. So I just saved my webhooks to a file here so I could copy them in quickly. But you would be pulling these from your make.com webhooks. And then this will then go and retrieve the chart of accounts. Now, in order to get the right transactions into the right accounts, you have to map which accounts go to which accounts. So again, here the tech support person would actually be talking to the customer and saying, okay, for contracts, which of your income accounts does this need to post to? So these are conditional value lists that are based on the actual posting type. So he's not going to see anything but income accounts, and he's not going to see anything but AR accounts in that column. So every one of these has to map. There's like a big X that appears here if they're not mapped properly. Then he can also create accounts if there's an account that needs to be created. Oftentimes that's going to be this bad debt account because a lot of people don't know about how to properly plan for bad debt. Then the next step is to import the customers. The way that I got this to work, because the journal entry requires you to specify a customer. And since we really don't know who all of these totals related to, my idea was just to create a default customer. So obviously, when you set this up for yourself, default customer isn't going to be in there. So you would just simply create it and select the default customer. But of course, if the client wanted it to post to somebody else's customer account, you could just select from the list. And then lastly, we're going to run a test. And the way the script works is it's looping through the insert from URL and hitting that make.com scenario multiple times to create all the journal entries. So we'll see if this will do this quickly. Okay. So again, these instructions are really for the tech support person to make sure the transaction showed up in QuickBooks. And then we can see that the transaction showed up in here with all the ID numbers. Then just to clean things up, because we wouldn't want to leave all these arbitrary journal entries in somebody's QuickBooks account, we'll just quickly delete all of them. And again, this is just doing a loop, running the make.com scenario for deleting the journal entries. And it's going to take a second. So it has to loop like 12 times. If your internet connection is faster, it will happen a whole lot faster. So once this is run, when you're logged in as the user, they do not see this QuickBooks setup. They're only going to see send to QBO and the QBO history, which is now empty. They then will only be able to send one date at a time, because we want to be able to record the actual date from the journal entry. What date do these totals relate to? So that's pretty much it. I don't know if I don't really have anything else to show. We're going to they're going to be sharing the link so you can download this and the presentation. And that's about it.
Thank you, Jillian. I had a question.
Sure.
There's a lot of middleware out there, like Claris Connect, Zapier, Make, a few others out there. Was this using this particular piece of middleware, was that primarily a financial decision?
Well, no, it was just the one that I built other automations using this tool outside of FileMaker, so I was familiar with it. I have kind of tried Zapier. What I like about this, one, it is inexpensive. Even for 10,000 operations a month, it's only $9 a month. So comparatively to Claris Connect, it's less expensive. But also the major contributor was that Claris Connect would require server. So since I knew that the customers didn't run on server, I couldn't really consider Claris Connect as an option. I also like that this is very visual. When you're setting up these modules, it's very, very easy to sort of understand how to pull your data and put it into a field. So to me, it's a little more low code than the way Claris Connect is and the way Zapier is, just visually, how it's visually represented.
Okay, we're down to our discussion and Q&A. Ready to share? Okay.
Yeah, there's a link if you want to share with the group. There's a links for everything. And then, yep, no
meetup in December. And the January meeting on the 15th is about deploying your own AI agent that's yours and not out in public. So, and Zandon of Portage Bay is going to present that and doing a lot of work in that area. That should be a very good topic.
Yeah, and Zandon's also going to be speaking about it at Claris Engage, so he's looking forward to that. And if everyone's ready, you can choose your breakout room, and we'll go there for about 20 minutes or so, and y'all can just continue talking.